Hey, everybody. So, in keeping with my theme of trying to bring value to you, today I'm really going to focus on people that are self employed. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Scott Christensen, who is a bookkeeper. He's a tremendous bookkeeper, actually. And this interview that I did with him, I thought was especially timely. Right now, with businesses struggling because of the lockdown, trying to apply for, the PPP loans, just trying to get any kind of assistance at all, having a great advisor and somebody that can help you navigate through all of that is really a tremendous asset. So here it is. This is my interview with Scott Christensen. Don't push stop yet. Here's Scott. I'm here with my friend Scott Christensen with Advanced Business Systems. I wanted to bring Scott and introduce him to you guys because, as you know, I'm trying to bring relevant info, during these crazy times with COVID and lockdown. And I was had a meeting with Scott. We're friends. We see each other once a week. Super reliable guy, super intelligent guy. And we were talking about not just his business and why it's important that if you are in business for yourself that you have a good bookkeeper. But we kind of brought up the whole idea of the whole PPP loan thing, and there was a ton of people that were not getting any relief. And there was a lot of controversy that the big banks were giving it to bigger clients, but the smaller people weren't getting it. And it just sounded too simple to me. So I asked Scott about it, and I said, Scott, what was some of the big pitfalls for small businesses when they were trying to get the PPP program? And Scott, why don't you explain to everybody what you had said to me?
Well, thanks for sharing your time with me today, Barry.
Of course.
This is a pretty hot subject right now because when they originated this program, the deadline for filing this request for this relief was actually July 31st, which has passed. So now the government has extended that deadline for a number of months. So it's a lot of people have a repeated interest in this subject, and addressing what the specific question that you and I went over was is that a lot of people were not able to access this relief, and there's some pretty good reasons. And it all has to do with the documentation by which they documented the activities in their business, or more or less the lack of it. The first requirement to um, qualify for this type of relief was to provide your actual payroll records. And this assumes that you actually have payroll records. Unfortunately, there is many businesses in this particular aspect that are not organized in, say, sophisticated entities like a partnership or an LLC or an S corporation, where this type of documentation is rather routine. You have small sole proprietors that receive the compensation from their business not in the form of formalized payroll compensation. They take very simple draw checks, which this is totally legal because as a sole proprietor, they're allowed to receive their compensation, basically distributions of the profit of the business. This is also how partnerships are handled. And ultimately, this is how an S corporation works as well. The problem is if they were not documenting the activities of their business in a current form, they had no evidence to show the government, uh, in the case of a sole proprietor, even the draw checks, because they were not able to provide a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement for the business by which the government calculated the amount of the relief that they might be eligible for.
So Scott, I know, because I'm in the business I'm in, I have a ton of clients that are self-employed, and same thing, like you just said. I mean, a lot of these clients, they have corporations, subchapter S corporations, and they they just take money as they need it, and when you talk to them, they often say, well, I mean, sometimes I get a big check in January, and then I don't see another check until March or April. But when I get paid, I get a lot of money. So I just take it as needed. If somebody is putting themselves on a W-2 paycheck through their own company, and are they issuing checks out to themselves on a regular basis, and are they required to cash those checks in order for you to do your job?
Well, as you say, it's a good idea, even if you're sole proprietor, to actually go through the process of hiring a payroll company or using a formalized payroll process to do your compensation, because the process will actually impound the payroll taxes as you go.
Sure.
When you're doing these large distributions, as you just described, quite often people do not understand how to calculate the self-employment tax that they're actually obligated to pay in the form of income taxes to the federal government.
Right.
So the way that we help people is we take the activity of their business. We use software products to categorize and classify all of this activity. And then we provide our clients with formalized financial statements. In the case of this PPP loan arrangement, in lieu of the formalized payroll reports that a customer has access to from a payroll company that are submitted every quarter, in this case, the government used the financial statements that accounting software outputs to do the calculations of what the sole proprietor would be eligible for.
Gotcha.
Without that evidence, even though they were very entitled to the program, they could not provide that evidence to verify their claim.
That's right. Guys, Scott I can't stress to you enough, with the background that I have, as long as I've been in this business, I'm very particular about my referral partners that I use. They have to go through strenuous vetting process. We call their references, and not to mention the fact that every time you get a new client and you take good care of them, that just builds your resume with us. And I can tell you that Scott is just an incredible guy. He really knows his stuff. It would take us 2 hours to sit down and talk to him and go into the background that he has, but he was a professional executive for many years in different industries, and it all kind of came full circle into bookkeeping. And there's not quite anybody like him out there. And if you're self-employed right now and you're trying to wing this, you're trying to just do everything yourself because you're worried about costs, I would tell you there's a big difference between the cost you need to pay for somebody who's really good and the cost that you have to pay if you do something wrong. The last thing in the world you want to do is to try and take matters in your own hands and then later on down the line wind up getting in trouble with the IRS, or a situation like this arises where you need help to be able to get assistance for, maybe it's an SBA loan, maybe we're out of the coronavirus at some point. There's every reason in the world, if you're self-employed and you've got money coming into your company, that you need somebody like Scott. The big companies have a full-time bookkeeper. You're fortunate to have somebody with Scott's qualifications to be able to bring him in on a temporary or even semi-regular basis. So I can't encourage you enough to reach out to Scott. I'm going to put his information down at the bottom of the screen here. Scott, if somebody does want to meet with you and at least start the conversation, how do you handle that with them? Do they get a free consultation? Do you start it out maybe with a phone call, or how do you work with people?
Well, if someone's referred to me, of course, I always contact them on the telephone, but our standard process is we offer no cost, no obligation to any client, a 1 to 2 hour consultation.
Wow.
Of course, at this time, in-person meeting may not be possible.
Sure.
because of safety concerns and the likes of this. So
Right.
because of the video conferencing tools that a lot of people have access to, including myself, I can always arrange for a Zoom meeting to talk to a client if they actually want to, simulate a face-to-face meeting. But quite often this can be handled with a real simple phone conference with the client.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Zoom. I mean, I'm not pumping Zoom. I used to use GoToMeeting. I used to use Join Me. I just like if I can't meet with somebody in person, looking at their face and looking at their facial expressions, and you can tell whether or not they're frustrated or, whether or not they have a question, just because, it's as close to a normal conversation as possible. I highly recommend it. Not to mention in this particular area, there's a good chance that somebody might want to show you some bookkeeping that they've done on their own. They can do that via Zoom, and you probably can show them some things as well. So guys, once again, I hope everybody's happy. I hope everybody's safe. I hope everybody's staying empathetic, and I hope if you're self-employed that you reach out to Scott. Scott, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope to, maybe we'll be able to do this again when we're over this whole thing and we can go a little deeper into some of the other services that you provide. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for letting me join you today as well.
See you, everybody. Be safe.